We have our international affairs analyst, dperry, here with us, and our correspondent, Balir Sladin. Two voices who can really kind of break down both the global strategy and regional realities behind this visit. All right, Dan, I want to start with the bigger picture here. You know, from a global standpoint, how significant is this trip for U.S.-Saudi relations? And does it signal a full rehabilitation of MBS on the world stage? And what does it tell us about what Trump's ultimate interests are right now?
I don't know about the world stage, but on the U.S. stage and at the White House, we have rarely seen a reception as opulent as the one that MBS has received. And it isn't even fully a state dinner because, of course, MBS is the crown prince and the actual ruler of the state of Saudi Arabia is his father, King Salman. Within the bounds of what can be done, it's incredible the degree of respect is being shown. And, of course, Trump has said they're going to get the F-35s. That is a major statement that erodes, basically eliminates Israel's monopoly over stealth fighters in the region. Is it a problem for Israel? Really, I would say it's bad, but not catastrophic. A war with Saudi Arabia hasn't been contemplated for many, many, many decades, if ever, really, not direct, and is unlikely in the future, no matter who rules Saudi Arabia. And of course, the monarchy has been somewhat stable. It clearly shows that the United States under Trump is not interested in human rights and in who killed Jamal Khashoggi at some embassy in Turkey and in anything other than transactionalism. I have observed for some time that Trump, for someone so transactional, seems not especially good in getting a return, at least in geopolitics, maybe in business and various dealings for Jared Kushner, maybe. But the deal that he obviously wanted, and that would have been game-changing for the region, would have been a significant security umbrella for Saudi Arabia, which includes these jets, in exchange for normalization with Israel. Whereas the Saudis, I hope to be surprised later tonight, but I probably won't be. The Saudis are sticking to their guns, that this requires genuine moves towards a Palestinian state, which is extremely unlikely under Netanyahu with this coalition.
So the question is, what is this meeting specifically going to mean for the future of world politics?
Well, Saudi Arabia is an enormous player in the world, and you could argue that by some measures it's the most important Arab country. Which is why, indeed, if it normalized with Israel, that would be such a signal for the rest of, not just the Arab world, for the Muslim world. Now, Saudi Arabia historically is somewhat equivocated and played all sides. And until recently, there was another move to maybe do rapprochement with Iran. They're constantly hedging their bets, essentially. And the deal that's on the table, beyond the F-35s, a major strategic realignment or alignment with the U.S., both on the military side and on the economic side, the business side, would pull Saudi Arabia away from the axis of, well, the renewed axis of evil, China, Iran, North Korea, Russia. The more America pulls Saudi Arabia in this direction, and with it the rest of the Muslim world, obviously the more heft America once again wields in the world. It's a slightly different kind of Pax Americana than we've seen in the past, where part of the issue was values. You had a massive war of values with the Soviet Union. Right now, it really is just about military might and business clout.
When you look at the F-35, and you're asking me, is it the same? I think it's going to be pretty similar, yeah. You know,
how will that
this is a great ally, and Israel's a great ally. And I know they'd like you to get planes of reduced caliber. I don't think that makes you too happy. They've been a great ally. Israel's been a great ally. And we're looking at that exactly right now. But as far as I'm concerned, I think they are both at a level where they should get top of the line. Yes, please.
I just want to ask for the Crown Prince, if I could just ask about the direct talks between
That's all right. Steve, 1 second. Go ahead.
Have you reached an agreement on a U.S.-Saudi defense treaty today? And are you going to bring up the Abraham Accords in your discussion?
I already brought them up.
What did you say?
I think I got a positive response. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, so definitely we believe having a good relation with all Middle Eastern countries is a good thing, and we want to be part of the Ibrahim Accord, but we want also to be sure that we secure a clear path of two-state solution. And today we have a healthy discussion with Mr. President that we're going to work on that to be sure that we can prepare the right situation as soon as possible to have that.
I think we're, I don't want to use the word commitment, but we've had a very good talk on the Abraham Accords. We talked about one state, two state. We talked about a lot of things in a short period of time. We'll be discussing it further, too. But I think you have a very good feeling toward the Abraham Accords.
Yes, definitely, Mr. President. We want peace for the Israelis. We want peace for the Palestinians. We want them to coexist peacefully in the region. And we will do our best to reach that day.
And the defense agreement, have you reached agreement on that?
We pretty much have.
I'm joined by Major General in the Reserves, Eitan Dan-Goet, former military secretary to 3 Israeli defense ministers, as well as the former coordinator of government activities in the Palestinian territories. We also have Yaki Dayan, the former Israeli consul in Los Angeles, as well as international affairs analyst Dan Perry, the former Middle East editor at the Associated Press. And Dan, I do want to begin with you because you were here even in our previous show on Middle East Now as this 1 hour nearly long press conference did kick off. Quite a lot of headlines, once again, as we talk about where to even begin. Where would you begin after this historic meeting of the 2 leaders addressing such a range of topics?
Well, it was a quite extreme and somewhat impressive display of friendship and warmth between the 2 leaders. I am somewhat impressed that he managed to get MBS to say that Saudi Arabia wants to join the Abraham Accords. Now, he's been hinting at this for some time. I think I know all the various ways in which he's danced around it. I don't recall him ever saying such a thing. For that matter, in English, at the White House, of all the so-called pledges I heard about today, this to me is the most remarkable and the most potentially game-changing. He also mentioned that he would like to see this be as part of peace for the Israelis and Palestinians and also a path to Palestinian independence. Now, the word path is very important because it's one thing to establish a Palestinian state. We may be a long while from that, but the idea of a path towards one will require political change in Israel, certainly at the coalition level, if not at the prime minister level. I could see Netanyahu shifting and trying to have a new coalition that maybe can tolerate such a thing. This would be huge. If Israel manages to achieve normalization with Saudi Arabia, that is in many ways a leader of the Muslim world and the Arab world, by most measures, not population, but every other measure. This is really a culmination of almost a century of Israel trying to be accepted in a region. It's massive. It's bigger than the F-35s. But the other headline, of course, is that Trump has already given away a bit of the story even before he gets any of this, because Saudi Arabia has not committed actually to doing it right now, and it hasn't committed even money for the Gaza reconstruction. And they're already getting F-35s, according to Trump, at the same level as Israel, not an inferior version. And this
similar.
is a defeat for Israeli diplomacy. Now, beyond that, clearly, this was massive messaging to the American people that Trump is open for business and is doing business. And I got to tell you, some of the numbers we heard today are so nonsensical. Part of the trick is that he implies it's in 1 year, but it could be over 100 years. $21 trillion. The entire U.S. economy is $25 trillion. The global economy is $100 trillion. I mean, if you believe that, I have a bunch of used Teslas for you.
Yeah, we'll certainly have to look more into the numbers that were thrown around during this meeting. But I want to come back to what you said about the F-35s, because, Yaki, this is something that has caused a little bit of concern here in Israel. But I want to talk even about the messaging from these 2 leaders sitting down and the U.S. president pretty much equating Saudi Arabia with Israel when it comes to allyship, when it comes to partnership.
You know, Israel has to come with a bucket, with a list to Trump and make sure that the QME, the qualitative military edge of Israel, is being preserved. And we have such a list. So that, I'm sure, was discussed between the Prime Minister and President Trump. So I wouldn't say that and, you know, add to that what we are doing in the F-35, the entire package around the F-35 is upgrading the plane, and the Saudis is not getting that. So I wouldn't say that if it stands alone, that's a problem. If it doesn't stand alone, and it comes with the package of normalization, then that's good.
Is involved. We have 20 seconds, Dan.
Two big things. Trump is obviously not committed to maintain Israel's qualitative military edge. He said, "Look, these are great allies."
Happy.
So the other thing is not one word about disarming Hamas. It's as if that problem didn't exist, and unless that happens very soon, everything we're talking about here is made a mockery of.
Certainly a lot of questions still to come. Dan Perry, we're going out for a quick break here.
Nobody in this table is an expert.
All right, Eitan Dan-Goet, thank you. We're going out for a break. Stay with us here on I24.
Joining us now is Ahmed Fouad Al-Khatib, Gazan analyst and senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, to help us understand how this resolution is being viewed on the ground. So Let's start with the core question here. From a Palestinian perspective, does this UN Security Council resolution represent a real step towards sovereignty, or is it simply being seen as another round of vague promises without any meaningful guarantees?
Well, good to be with you. I will share with you that thus far, all the sentiments I've picked up in Gaza through friends, through family, through going through Arabic social media in Gaza have been overwhelmingly supportive of this resolution. And that's not about sovereignty. With due respect to the aspiration for sovereignty, which is a legitimate one, that's not what's on people's minds right now. What's on people's minds right now is the restoration of basic services, is to get rid of Hamas's dominion over the Gaza Strip now 20 years later that has decimated any prospect for hope and prosperity, and is to really begin the 1,000-mile journey, if you will, of reclaiming what Gaza should have been about, which is a role model for effective Palestinian self-governance. The biggest concern is the gap between the message of the resolution, which is very firm, very solid, very clear, and it does establish legal and political legitimacy to the idea of disarmament and the demilitarization of Gaza. On the other hand, you have Hamas in Gaza that has been entrenching itself since day one of the ceasefire, that has been collecting unexploded munitions to rebuild IEDs and fuel for rockets. You have Hamas that is willing to continue using the entirety of the civilian population, over 2 million people, as hostages effectively and human shields for its nefarious Islamist resistance agenda. And so that gap has yet to be bridged and remains to be seen. What I have been promoting is the use of out-of-the-box solutions, like complementing the International Stabilization Force, perhaps with some elements of the Palestinian Authority, or with private military contractors that can actually take on Hamas in a very professional, highly targeted way. But until that is addressed, much of what we saw yesterday being celebrated remains highly theoretical and unlikely to wield any results.
We have our international affairs analyst here with us, dperry, who actually wants to ask you a question as well.
Yeah, I love this idea of out-of-the-box solutions, and I've been wrestling with that myself. We're looking at a situation where this edifice built at the Security Council could amount to nothing, basically, because Hamas renders it a total mockery by continuing business as usual. I'm wondering if you think there might be some solution to enable the Palestinian population, currently 90% of it in the Strip under Hamas, to maybe move to the perimeter temporarily while the war that you're talking about, waged by whomever, is carried out without the population being essentially human shields for Hamas. Could something like that, not ethnic cleansing, but a moving around of the pieces so you don't resume the war under the previous paradigm where civilians are being killed because of this? Can you see something happening in that regard?
Well, that might very much be a part of the, I mean, I've very much so thought about this, but I'm assuming you're talking about the moving of the population or elements of it to what is now being dubbed as Eastern Gaza.
Correct.
Beyond the yellow zone. And I would certainly welcome, I mean, I have actually been highly critical of the strategy by the IDF that, like, for example, pushed the population from the north and just said, head south to Hamas-controlled territories.
Absolutely.
Which it like essentially, you know, prolonged this issue. But so that might very well have to be a component of it, because unfortunately, and unless we see some real movement in the next few weeks beyond the headlines and beyond the celebrations, we need to actually, we're going to face stagnation or a return to the old model of warfare that got us here.
All right. Well, on that note, I'd like to thank you for joining us as per usual, Ahmed.